first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Everyone, welcome to Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. As always, appreciate you joining us. In case you don't know, we start live streaming here every weekday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, bringing you all kinds of different interviews, content, segments, deeper dives, a lot of things covered on here. We're live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, our website, and our apps. All great places to catch what we're doing live and, of course, see it afterwards. Right now, though, we're talking about something coming up in about 10 days or so. Actually, the end of this month, the NASCAR Xfinity Series returns to Portland. So it's been here for the last couple of years, and returning again May 31st and June 1st, excuse me. And we got to sit down with last year's champion, not only of NASCAR Xfinity Series, but also the PIR champion from last year's race, Cole Custer. So got to talk to him for just a little bit and about, what's going on for this year, what to expect coming up for the race. And of course, I did have to talk about the punch that was thrown, not by him, but by somebody else pretty recently. So we did discuss that as well. So all that's right here with this. Let's go ahead and go to it. Here's Cole Custer. Well, coming back here to Portland, defending champion and also defending champion of Xfinity Series too. But I wonder for you, what goes into your mind frame with that, knowing that you were the champion last year? Does that factor into the race at all? Or is it something you just kind of block out?
For the most part, just kind of something you block out. I think winning the championship last year, that was such a cool experience. Something we worked so hard for. Everybody at SHR had so much to do with that, and our team did such a great job. But at the end of the day, the championship doesn't mean anything this year. We got to go out there and we got to do the same thing and go out there and win to get ourselves in the playoffs and in a solid spot in the playoffs. So we definitely got the pressure's on to try and win races and set yourself up for later in the year. So we got to go to Portland and try and make it happen again.
Right, and do that. So that makes sense, putting that into that kind of mind frame going through. Looking at the season right now, how do you feel it's been going so far?
It's been pretty good so far. Overall, we're still looking for victory lane. We're fighting so hard to get in victory lane every single week. I feel like we're in the top 5 about every week and knocking on the door, but it's just trying to break through and get that first win. But overall, our guys are doing a solid job. We're second in points right now, so just got to keep it rolling, and the more you knock on the door, we'll get it.
Well, you've had so much success as well, and obviously, still going and fighting here this season. But looking back, this is something that I do always like to ask people: is do you remember when it was that you first decided, like, hey, this is what I want to do for a living? I want to race cars as fast as possible and do this, completely competitive, almost insane sport. But when was it that you were like, this is what I want to do?
I think for me, it was when I was in my teens. Things start getting more serious. You're trying to put more into it, trying to perfect things a little bit more. And then it's kind of like you do good at times, and you're like, okay, I can do this, and I can get more serious about it, and I can make this happen. So definitely when I got into where I was about a teenager is when things got more serious and things you could actually see the picture kind of starting to come.
Right, and you knew like, okay, this is the path for me. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, when you're so young, it's hard. You're just out there making laps and trying to do the best you can and learn and have fun. But I think once you get in your teens, that's when things become more serious and you find out if you can do it or not. So that's really the time.
Do you still have that same feeling when you go out there and compete that you did back then?
Definitely not quite as nervous, especially when you're the young guy and you're doing it for the first few times. There's a lot of nerves there for sure, trying to figure out what to expect and how things are going to play out. But as you get more and more used to it, the nerves go down a little bit. You still have the nerves because you still never know what's going to happen that first lap. But at the end of the day, you learn how to cope with those things and know what to expect a little bit more.
Something else that, this comes to light actually just kind of perfectly with, there was an incident yesterday where a punch was thrown at a NASCAR event. And, it brings up that competitive nature. This is a highly competitive sport, just like anything else. So when you're out there, how much of that does play through to off of, once you're not racing, you encounter maybe some guy who cut you off or something like that?
Man, if it's bad enough, we're gonna talk about it after, and you see it a lot this weekend. Sometimes you have a little bit of a fight, and that's part of it. I think at the end of the day, you try and talk things through with people, depending on how mad you are and what the situation is. But sometimes if it's not getting through to them, People go another route, with the fist. So it's definitely part of it. I think our racing is so close in NASCAR. We're beating and banging all the time. You're just going
Right.
to have situations like that.
Are there maybe, gestures of support given to each other while you're out there racing?
You'll see that from time to time. You'll
Yes.
definitely see some hand signaling, whether it's good or bad. But yeah, that's definitely, we see that about every race.
Yep, that makes sense. Well, coming here to Portland, bringing it back to that, this is something that I think people here have really, really enjoyed. More and more racing being here and including this series. So, but for you, for the driver side of things, what is it? Is there anything that stands out to you about racing in Portland, maybe compared to other places?
Well, I think it's a really racy racetrack. There's definitely some passing zones and some braking zones that you can go in there and try and make passes and beat and bang a little bit. So it puts on a good race every time I feel like we go there. And I think at the same time, it's such a cool place to just visit. Portland, I have some family that lives there, and it's just going up to the Pacific Northwest. Like, there's nothing like that, going up to that side of the country, and seeing the scenery around and everything. So it's a long trek for our haulers, but I feel like it's one of the coolest places we go because it is so much different.
Yeah, and I would imagine, get definitely different terrain, different all of that, but then also, expanding the sport some as well, for people here in the Northwest or maybe a little bit previously, maybe a little bit starved for some of this, now getting a taste of that. It's got to be interesting for you with the fans coming out and, some of them maybe seeing it for the first time.
For sure. I mean, I think we hear that all weekend, really. I mean,
Yeah.
all these fans that have been dying for NASCAR to come back. And, there's a lot of short tracks up in the Pacific Northwest that people go to, and they're hardcore racers, and they want to see their sport come into town. So it's really cool to get to make that dream come true for a lot of fans and get to show them some good racing.
Going back to one other thing, we've got just a couple of minutes left. You were talking about how when you were a kid and a teen, starting to learn it and understanding it a little more, still nervous. What advice would you give somebody else out there who's maybe in that same position right now?
Man, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you got to get laps. You got to go out there and try and practice as much as you can, and really dive into, how you can make yourself better. I think there's so many different things you can do as a driver, and just trying to figure out all the different techniques and everything. And the only way you're going to do that is trying to get laps. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Who did you look up to the most when you were coming up?
For me, it was always Jason Leffler. I was always a fan of him. He drove for Haas in the 00 in the Busch series, and I just was always a big fan of him. And he came from a similar background in quarter midgets and midgets and stuff like that. So he was always definitely my favorite. Not the biggest guy, but I always loved cheering for him.
Nice. Well, Cole, anything else that you want to let people know, out there for coming out, what they can expect, they can expect from this race coming up?
Well, it's always going to be exciting. There's always going to be a lot of beating and banging. People probably angry, but it's road course racing. NASCAR road course racing, it doesn't get any better than that. How much full contact there is, and how much we have to really beat and bang to try and make up positions. So it's always going to be a crazy race.
Nice. Well, Cole, thank you very much, for talking to us. Looking forward to this coming up here. So everybody's going to be out there. There's 2 days. There's so much that's going to be happening, and we're telling everybody all about it. So thanks for joining us, though, to talk about this, and best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, there we go. Cole Custer right here on Fox 12 Now. So big thank you to him for joining us. And again, that next NASCAR Xfinity Series coming up May 31st, June 1st at the Portland International Raceway. So you can check all of that out. And thanks for joining us. This is Fox 12 Now. Quick interview there. Sometimes you get a longer amount of time with some people. Sometimes you don't. But that was great to have some time with him. And we do have a lot more coming up here for this show, though. As always, we're here throughout the afternoon. And coming up at 1:30 p.m., we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, switching gears a bit. I told you we cover a wide range of topics, so we're going to be talking about that. In particular, PDF scams are up 75%. That is huge, and you probably have seen some in your email, and they're getting really crafty about convincing you to click on those, particularly in the healthcare sector. So we've got some information for you and some tips and tricks on how to avoid becoming a victim of those cybersecurity scams. So that's, again, coming up at 1:30, but we have lots of content for you to check out on the Fox 12 Oregon app. So I encourage you to download that. Whatever platform you're on, we've got an app for it. You can download it. There's a Fox 12 Now tab right there. We have lots of different conversations on there and segments and interviews and things that we've covered, so plenty to watch. And I do encourage you as well, if you have an idea for a segment, something that you think would work for this show, feel free to send me an email, fox12now@kptv.com. That's fox12now@kptv.com. Let me know what it is, and I'll see if maybe we can do something about that. Maybe it's a deeper dive on a segment you saw on our regular news casts, and you're like, I'd like to learn more about that. Well, we might be able to get the reporter in here and do that for you, or anything else. So feel free to send it in. We'll see what we can do. But otherwise, we will be here, like I said, throughout the afternoon. I'll be back if you're watching live in just about 15 minutes or so, and I'll join you then. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.